I've seen a lot of comments on Demon Rush videos about the manga that people are having trouble following the story, and so I just wanted to make this video and explain the timeline, which is probably why a lot of people are getting confused. Maybe they haven't been reading the chapters numerically and they've just been picking and choosing. That could also be causing some misunderstanding. But as you see from this picture, there is 3 timelines for Demon Rush. There's the year 2022, which is on the left, which is Doomsday. It's actually the past. The present day of Demon Rush is actually the year 2029, 7 years after Doomsday, 7 years of training for Soren. That's going to be where the story really takes off. And as we finish the entire volume 2, which is the flashback of Doomsday, of Michael versus Algolga, which will be complete in the next chapter, we're going to go to the year 2029. And then obviously from chapter 1, we saw Soren in angelic armor with wings and white hair, and that was the year 2039, which is actually 10 years in the future. So 3 different timelines. The present day is the year 2029. That's the picture in the middle. The flashback of how it all started is the year 2022. That's the picture on the left. And the future is 2039. Now, why did I go ahead and do this and not do a more linear stage of progression for the story? Well, you don't have to. I wanted to open up Demon Rush and show everybody what it's capable of at its heights so that people will give it a chance. It's a method of writing. You don't have to do it this way. You don't have to do it linearly, like starting with an origin story or anything like that. You can write however you want. The main purpose of a writer is to make it interesting and intriguing to the audience and just get people to watch. If you take a look at Berserk, Berserk opens in present day, but it's 100 chapters of pretty much not explaining anything until it gets into 100 chapters of flashback. Take a look at Boruto, the opening episode. You have a flash forward, you have the future Kawaki versus Boruto, and you're literally spending the entire series trying to figure out how in the heck did they even get there. Well, similarly in Demon Rush, that's exactly what we're doing here. Showing you a future where the 2 main characters are extremely powered up. That's chapter 1. Chapter 2 shows you the present day and kind of the state of the world. And then chapters 3 through 5 is a flashback of how it all began, giving you more explanations as to what changed the world into what it is today. And as the story progresses, it's mainly going to focus on the present day, which is year 2029. And obviously there will be a lot of flashbacks of training and trying to explain what happened in those 7 years after Doomsday. I don't think we're going to ever jump back into the future again. That's just kind of like a one-of thing. In fact, if this ever was going to turn into a full-blown anime, I'm not even 100% sure I would include the authentic chapter 1 with Rush vs. Adriel. Probably just start with chapter 2, to be honest. I took a risk and a gamble by making chapter 1 with the future fight between Rush vs. Adriel. But again, my reasoning, my thought process behind it was people these days, they want action, they want it now. Thousands and thousands of new stories are introduced to everyone every month. If you go to Webtoons, there's always new stories popping up, and lots of people are trying to write their own story. So in that sense, I believe most writers are probably following a more linear progression, starting with the origin story and building up. So I wanted to do something different. I took a risk, and that's okay, because as the story flows, it's going to get a lot easier to understand. The first few chapters, it's okay that it doesn't make a lot of sense yet. I have so much writing and story building coming up. It's just, we have to get there. So I honestly think that Demon Rush will really start to pop off around chapter 30 or 40. There just needs to be content. Like, no story really just takes off after a couple chapters. Think of all of the major shonen series you've ever read or watched. None of them became hype until either there was an anime announced or it was like 50 chapters deep. I never even heard of Solo Leveling until there was about 80 chapters, and it wasn't until I was at like around chapter 40 of Solo Leveling that I became super invested in the series. And Solo Leveling is now getting their own anime, by the way. And ultimately, for the future Demon Rush, I think that's probably what's going to happen here as well. For one, the most important thing is we need to crank out chapters. Somehow I have to get Pedro to draw faster, but I also don't want to sacrifice the art. I don't rush him. The art is eternal. It's going to be there forever, and I want it to be godly like Berserk. At the same time, I do realize the landscape of especially YouTube, and people want more content and they want it faster. Contrary to most belief, it's really not quantity over quality in most cases, especially when you're on something like YouTube or Webtoons. It's quantity. People want to get invested in the story, and most of the time it's okay to sacrifice quality to just pump out more content. It's going to do better for you in the long run. But for me, Demon Rush is my baby. It's a passion project, and I absolutely love the art. Pedro can draw what's in my brain like better than I can even think it, and I think that's just marvelous. We make a really great team. I don't want to rush him or burn him out. I know a lot of mangaka have health issues and such. And also, this most recent volume, chapters 2 through 5, have been extra difficult for Pedro just because there's so much landscaping, there's so much buildings to draw and destruction and skyscrapers and angular foreshortening of cities. It's very difficult and takes a long time. It'd be great if I could get Pedro some additional staff to help him with at least the landscapes. Like, he's amazing at the characters. He's told me he struggles a little bit, or at least it's too time consuming to constantly draw these heavy landscapes. So that's something that we can either work on or we can hire someone to help. And if we're able to do that, maybe we can pump out chapters a lot faster. Additionally, the angel designs, dude, they're so complex and so detailed. But as we get into chapter 6, which will really kick off Demon Rush with present day Soren, and we're going to get to see him battle some demons and stuff like that, that should hopefully start to speed up the process a little bit because it's more characters and there's still some landscaping, like they still are fighting in the city, but we'll work with Pedro and see what we can do with that. At least he won't have to draw angels for a little while. Like this double page shot of all 8 angels standing together, this must have taken Pedro forever. Like, I can't even imagine trying to draw something like this with all of the detail on their armors and everything like that. This panel was actually a request of me specifically. I told Pedro I wanted this shot in here. I even rewrote the story a little bit because things like this are important. Like, art is very, very important. Story is also very, very important. A quantity is very, very important. Like pumping out chapters quickly. Like, you know, One Piece does weekly chapters. One Punch Man does bi-weekly chapters. And then you have Dragon Ball Super and most of the rest who do once a month. And then you have some stuff like Berserk, you know, that used to come out every 6 months. But long story short with all of this, what I'm trying to say is we'll try to start cranking out chapters. Hopefully once a month would be amazing. Like if we can get 12 chapters a year, it'd be absolutely incredible. And that's kind of what we need to get the timelines to a point where you guys will understand it way easier. You'll understand like these characters and when they're young and when they're present day, etc. So I understand there's only 4 chapters right now, but chapter 2 through 4, which are on my YouTube channels right now, are pretty linear. I mean, it's Soren in present day, and then he says, ever since that day, Doomsday, everything changed. And then the rest of the series has just been about Doomsday, and it's all been in a row, telling the same story. It was all supposed to be one big chapter, but Pedro and I made the decision to split it up because we didn't want you guys having to wait too long for the whole thing. Yeah, so that pretty much wraps it up. If you guys have any questions about the timelines or the characters, leave them in the comments below and I'll reply to you. But yeah, I hope that cleared the air on why we're going through 3 different timelines and where the actual current present day is and where we're going to spend most of our time reading the series, which is present day year 2029 with Soren, who is age 25, by the way. If he was 18 when on Doomsday for high school, he's 25 now, and in the future he and Rush would be 35 years old. So how do they get there to the super powerful, you know, forms and everything like that? Well, that's what the whole story is basically going to tell. All right, guys, I'm Mastar. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and the explanation. Subscribe if you haven't already, or if you're new to Demon Rush, you can read it free on Webtoons. We have a store, shop.demonrush.com, where you can get tons of merch. And we also have a Discord for the card game players.